I get angry regularly with my spouse because it's always right and doesn't want to lose an argument. How can I control my anger? And it's a good question. She's not the first person that has asked that question. Men also ask that question, just like women do. How come I get so angry all the time with my spouse, and when I'm angry, I say things that I don't want to say. What can you suggest to me to do? How can I change that? And when I hear that, I always like to explain to people that the reason why you are getting angry at your spouse is because of the way you interpret their action. It is the way you interpret their action that makes you think that they are trying to disrespect you, disregard you, harm you, and then when you interpret their behavior that way, what happens is that God has designed us to have this reaction that protects us when we are in danger. And so when your spouse says something, you interpret it as danger and you react in a way to protect yourself, in a way to stop yourself from being abused, undervalued, and all of that. And this is why we get angry. Once you understand that, it will help you a lot in overcoming that behavior of getting angry always. Now, there are many ideas and suggestions that people give with regards to dealing with anger, and they call that anger management, and they work if you will remember that you need to do those things. So for example, count to 20 or count to 10 in your mind, or walk away from the situation before responding. Those things work if you can remember. Most times though, before you remember, you trigger it because something in you is telling you that you're in danger. So you're triggered and you take action. You say the wrong thing, you feel the feeling that you're feeling, and you begin to react from your body. Sometimes you don't even say anything, but you do what you will do when you're angry, and that triggers your spouse as well. And that's that cycle of doom that I always talk about, that breaks the marriage. The question is, why are you interpreting the behavior of your spouse as danger? Why are you interpreting the actions of your spouse the way you are interpreting them? That comes from your upbringing. And the reason why you interpret that as dangerous is because you want to be loved just like God has designed you to. And when that is not coming and somebody is trying to take the little you have, you respond, you react. In anger, of course, when you're angry, there are certain behaviors that are associated with anger, and many of them are negative. In short, all of them. So maybe you start speaking harsh words, you raise your voice, you bang things, you slam doors, and you say hurtful words. Those are the things that people do when they're angry. Let me share with you the roadmap. I always like to share this roadmap because that's how we deal with every situation in marriage. If you want to change your marriage, the first step always, if you're having, like I shared earlier in this video, if you're having disputes all the time, you get angry every week, you have a reason to be angry, and something happens every week or every day, there's a problem there. The problem is that your heart is not at peace. You have not taken responsibility for your joy. You are expecting your spouse to give you joy. You are depending on them to make you happy. And if you continue to stay in that state, no matter what I try to show you about anger, it's going to remain. You're going to keep having that problem. And it's not just your marriage. Other people in your life would see the same thing. Your husband or your spouse may really have the issue that triggers you more than others, but yet other people will trigger you. And the reason is because your joy is not full. You have not yet put your joy in such a way that people cannot take it from you. And I'll tell you a story that I read in a book called Real Love by Greg Bear. And that story says, if two people find themselves on a deserted island, and the food is finished, They don't have any food to eat. They have not eaten for days. And then they start fighting with each other and saying, where is all the food? Why is the food finished? And they begin to fight amongst one another. They fight with each other. That is not going to end anywhere. Why? Because they are hungry. And it's not the real problem why there's no food is because there's a shipwreck, not because of what the other person did. So when there's a shipwreck and there's no food, you're supposed to work together to find food from somewhere. The explanation here is that the love that we want, which is to be valued, to be recognized for who we are, regardless of what we've done wrong, regardless of what we've done right, we just valued and recognized and appreciated for who we are. That feeling that we want, the other person doesn't have it to give it. And if we fight them for not having it to give it, it's like you fighting your friend, your husband who has shipwrecked together with you on an island and there's no food. Because what you want them to give, they don't have it. That's why there's a dispute. So when a husband says, I'm always right, the reason why they always feel right is because in their mind, they are right. They think that they are right. And you know that they are not right, or maybe you don't even know. But somehow you know that there's nobody on earth that can be right all the time. But they think they are right. So there's no way to solve that problem. Because what you want from them, which is to recognize you and appreciate the fact that they can be wrong, and appreciate the fact that whatever contribution you are bringing into the discussion is valid and useful, they don't know how to do that. But they can learn, but they don't know how to do that. So, but the reason why you are getting angry is because you assume that they should know that. And because they refuse to know that and refuse to do the right thing, you feel agitated, you feel like you need to protect yourself, and so you act. And when you act, when maybe you say hurtful words, the reason why you're saying those hurtful words is to make them feel the pain that you feel, or to stop them from making you feel that pain again. But you don't get the results that you want. When somebody does not have food to give to you and you make them feel the pain that you feel, they're not going to manufacture food from anywhere. And so if you want to control your anger, the best thing to do is understand why you're getting angry and do that when you are not triggered, so that over time you don't interpret things the way you do now, and so you won't get angry as you used to. So this is the process for overcoming anger, and you do that now. Now, I haven't said this to you. Maybe you then go home, and as soon as you go home, you say, yes, I understand now. My husband wants to be valued for who he is, wants to be recognized that no matter how he is, whether he's know-it-all or know-nothing, whether he is kind or is not kind, he wants to be loved for who he is. So you know that, and you get home and you begin to discuss, and somebody says the war in Ukraine is for this reason, and you come up with another reason, and before you know it, you're arguing again and you're getting angry. At that time, you may not remember what I just said, but if you do, let's hope that you do, let's assume that you do. If you remember that what I said was that your husband wants to be valued for however he thinks, at that point you'll be able to remind yourself, you know what, this man just wants to be recognized for how he thinks. And then you say, oh really, I see what you're saying. How did you get to know that? Where did you get your information from? And then he's going to take the time to give you the information, and while he's doing that, maybe you will calm down and recognize that he may be blaming you or attacking you, but the truth is that what he wants is love. And once you begin to give that love, which is recognition of who he is, valuing him for who he is, regardless of his errors and mistakes, what he will do is that he will calm down, because that's what he wants. That's what all of us want. You now may not be able to get that from him because he doesn't know how to do that. You will now get that from God. As you get that from God, you will then be able to transfer that knowledge to him as he begins to recognize that you are not easily triggered. Now, I did a video on how not to be easily triggered. And so that goes to more details on this and tells you the background. So for today now, I'm not able to talk to you about the background of how to get to where we got, but I've just given you in a nutshell how to reduce the way you get angry. If you can change the way you look at situations and you don't interpret them as attack, danger, you will not get angry. Let me show you a scripture. When I try to teach this, people like to quote some scriptures to me. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 26 says that be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Now, a lot of people read this and say, Pastor, when you tell us we can begin to see things in a different way so that we're not easily triggered and we don't get angry. What of scripture that says be angry and do not sin? And they forget that same scripture, if you read verse 31 of it, says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you. Let them be put away from you. Here's what the scripture is saying. If you read it in context, it's saying to you, do not get angry. But if you get angry, do not sin. That's what that scripture is saying. Do not get angry. Now, you cannot just say, okay, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to get angry. If you do that, you will find yourself angry. But if you deal with the root cause of it, which is the fact that your joy needs to be in the right place, and then secondly, the way you interpret. So when you see people trying to push things on you, you're like in this situation, I'm going to answer this question directly. When you are seeing that your husband doesn't want to accept that they are wrong in anything, you recognize that they just want to be valued, want to be recognized. So you figure a way to do that without, of course, lying or deceiving yourself. You ask them, oh, fantastic, I know that you like to discuss about these things and you are very knowledgeable about many things. Where did you get this from? So that removes the defense and you can move forward.